You can eat clean, you can train hard, you can take every supplement, have the perfect routine. But if your sleep sucks, you throw all that away. My mission is to actually help people feel better. And I think the fastest way to do that is through their sleep. When I first made this realization, I was a walk-on at Michigan State. I played football. I had 0 offers. I didn't even have a Division II offer. I had was the ability to adapt. When I got into a situation, if people were a lot better than me, I would figure it out eventually along the way. I ended up walking on at Michigan State, starting, kind of a dream come true, played some time in the NFL. And then after that, I devoted my life to helping people perform better, feel better in the strength conditioning world. And what I quickly realized as I pushed forward, sleep was this thing that no one was talking about. This was about 10 years ago. I want to talk about how you can fix your sleep. If your sleep sucks, how do we change that? First, let's talk about what the price of sleeping poorly is. And I don't want to be negative, but just in general, if I'm talking about sleep being the foundation of health and wellness, when you take away that foundation, everything crumbles. And that's kind of exactly what happens. And I think what people don't realize is, and a lot of people treat it this way, is when you're young, you're resilient. You're naturally resilient. One, our body can take on more stress. 2, we actually are better sleepers. We require more sleep, but we're able to get in deep sleep better. And so this combination, I think people, to some extent, myself included, that you take things for granted when you're younger. You don't have to focus on it because we're resilient. But as time comes along, 30s, 40s come along, all of a sudden you don't start feeling as good. You have to focus on it more, and that's when people come to the realization that sleep is something they need to prioritize. Well, hopefully now our younger generations are getting a head start. It seems that way, at least from the people I talk to. And so what sleep does is it really allows our body to reset. And I think what it impacts the most is our brain. And when you look at some of these new studies, the long-term studies on Alzheimer's, dementia, there's a clear link between neurodegenerative disease and lack of sleep. And now we're finding out the reasons. There's some processes and some systems that are taking place at night that make a lot of sense, and we'll talk about those later. But for the most part, cognitively, it's literally when your brain flushes itself out. In deep sleep, this fluid, cerebrospinal fluid, comes, pumps these big waves of fluid, flushes your brain out. And both literally and figuratively, it is a flush for our brain. So mental reset, not only from a physical perspective, also that's when we reset our emotional intelligence, our ability to regulate emotion, all those good things. That's one piece. The other piece is the physical response. Sleep is actually, when it comes down to recovery, like there's a million recovery modalities nowadays. When it comes down to actual recovery, sleep is pretty much the only thing that's actually working. That's the time when our tissue's actually regenerating. That's the time when you're actually getting stronger, like physically at the cellular level, you actually get stronger during sleep, not any other time. We can support that with things throughout the day, but for the most part, that's when that's taking place. And so it really does set up the foundation for everything to either flourish or deter. And I always talk about sleep being, you're either getting better or you're getting worse. Everyone's had probably an annoying middle school coach say that a lot, but sleep is actually the ultimate form of that, because if you're sleeping well, everything in your life is impacted in a positive way. If you're not sleeping well, it goes the other direction. Let's talk about what I did to fix my sleep and what my routine looks like, and then maybe you can learn from some of the things that I do. The first thing that I focus on is temperature. And why I say that is because that's the first step in my routine. And not only the temperature in my room, but the temperature that I'm exposing myself to. Your body is very responsive to temperature at night. It's responsive for a couple reasons. One, our body always is adjusting throughout the day. If you think about it from an evolutionary perspective, when the sun was up, different times of day, it was warmer during the day, it was cooler at night. Our body reflects that from a circadian rhythm perspective. My routine, I usually expose myself to some type of heat. I'm a big sauna person. I love the sauna. Exposing yourself to heat is beneficial because in order for our body to get into sleep and deeper sleep cycles, but to fall asleep, it actually has to drop its temperature a degree and a half. So you actually drop your core temperature. And by exposing yourself to warm temperatures right before we go to bed, anytime you're getting blood flow to the extremities, it's going to help cool you down faster. That's what happens when you're warm, because you're trying to cool down. And you get that response from being in the warm of your body trying to cool itself down. You go from there right into the cool environment of your room, hopefully 63 to 68 degrees. That seems to be like the range you want to be in. And then you get into that cold room and your body cools down very quickly, which results in falling asleep fast, deep restorative rest. I usually think about temperature as the first thing to focus on. The second thing I think about is hydration strategy, the first step, but in my head, this is secondary. But I think hydration is probably one of the most underrated things to think about when it comes down to sleep for a couple reasons. One, when I think about hydration, I think about things like caffeine. I think majority of people probably overconsume caffeine, but that's not necessarily a horrible thing. It's just more being strategic about when you have it. I have a hard cutoff window at 12 p.m. noon for caffeine, nothing beyond that. Caffeine can be a very useful cognitive tool, seems to be relatively neuroprotective, can be useful for a lot of things. Caffeine's really good at is blocking that. What it's good at is actually not making you feel tired. Caffeine, I would argue, is actually better at making you not tired than giving you energy. That's why I cut it off at noon because I really do want to have that natural tapering down of energy throughout the evenings. Being mindful of caffeine. The other thing is being mindful of your hydration. Hydration is very important to all aspects of health, but there's a timing component of this. And we think about restorative sleep, that's in uninterrupted sleep. And so if there's anything we can take into our control, you can take something into your control, that's a huge win. And hydration is one of those things. Couple things, front loading your hydration, right? Making sure you're really being aware of the first half of the day of getting the majority of your hydration so you're not drinking a ton of fluids before bed. That can be really useful. And then making sure you have a good electrolyte balance, right? So you think about like really intense exercise, maybe 1,000 milligrams or so of sodium to restore that electrolyte loss back. But you want to have a good balance of electrolytes, because when those get out of balance, the fluid side outside your cell and the balance of electrolytes gets thrown off, you tend to go to the bathroom more often because your body is trying to realign those levels. So if you go to the bathroom more often, you have higher concentrations of electrolytes and vice versa, and it holds on to water or gets rid of water at different times depending on your hydration. Hydration strategy, front load your hydration, control your caffeine, and make sure you have balanced electrolytes. Third thing to think about is day drinking, right? People love that topic. But what I mean by day drinking is being mindful of alcohol consumption. I think alcohol has been linked with good sleep because it's sedative. You do fall asleep faster, that's true, but it doesn't mean it's good sleep. More sleep doesn't always mean better sleep. Does that make sense? It's more about having the right sleep cycles and progressing through those cycles naturally. And what alcohol does is it actually limits the amount of REM sleep you get. So when you have alcohol, it basically blocks your brain from getting into the REM sleep, the first half to 3/4 of the night, and your brain tries to make up for it that last piece of the night by going into some big REM cycles. But for the most part, it's blocking the type of sleep that allows your brain to reset from a cognitive perspective. When you talk about memory, reaction time, emotional stability, mood stability, communication skills, that is reset in REM sleeps. It's also what alcohol also does is, as much as it might feel like you're sleeping well or sleeping deep, you actually wake up. It's a lot more segmented throughout the night. You just don't usually remember it. It's very choppy sleep. I usually don't fully wake up, but when you look at a sleep study, it seems to be very, very choppy. And again, not allowing your body to progress through those cycles and not getting as quality of sleep. And quality is the name of the game. My fourth thing is breathing. And this one is a big driver in starting dream recovery, but something to really think about with sleep. And I don't think a lot of people go in this direction out of the gate, but it is your breathing. When you think about the relationship between sleep, breathing, your nervous system, our breathing is something that really impacts our nervous system. It is the steering wheel of our nervous system. Breathing should be something you're looking at right away. And you need to be breathing through your nose throughout the night. That is the ideal way to breathe, the optimal way to breathe. When someone starts breathing out of their mouth, things start to happen that aren't good for health in general, but every breathing ailment, for most of them at night, when you talk about sleep apnea and things like that, most people are breathing through their mouth. Taking a look at how you're breathing, obviously I've used mouth tape for about 6 years. It was changed my life. I have the data to back it up. It's pretty wild when you look at my sleep studies side by side. But being aware of your breath, being aware of slowing your breath down, being conscious of your breath, breathing through your nose, and having optimal breathing throughout the night has been a game changer. If you're snoring, if you're breathing out of your mouth, take a look at that, because there's a lot of negative health effects that come alongside that. The fifth thing is controlling the light. I don't want to say it's the most impactful, but this is up there. And what I mean by controlling the light is, imagine if there's no technology. As we evolved, how the sun comes up, the sun goes down, and there's this nice gradient of light. And that's exactly how our hormones work. When we think about circadian rhythm, what that really means is our relationship and peaks of hormone, and a lot of those are controlled with light. People talk about melatonin, they supplement melatonin, but at the end of the day, melatonin is a sleep triggering hormone, and it's produced in the absence of light. So if you're exposed to a bunch of light throughout the entire evening, you're not going to start producing melatonin. I feel the melatonin industry has absolutely exploded. And there's also a ton of artificial light in screens and TVs and all this stuff. When I think about creating the environment, you want to create a gradient from the day to night. As the sun starts to set, or it would set, let's say in the winter time when it's less sunny in the evening, start to dim the lights in your place, light candles instead, use blue light glass. All this stuff are just tools, control the light, nice gradients. And the reason why the glasses are effective is blue light's the most stimulating, it's the most powerful wavelength of visible light, meaning the most energy. But when you control the exposure to that certain type of light and you turn it to more red lights, which are, think about it like Roy G. Biv on the spectrum, the blue and the violet are on the high energy side, the red is on the low energy side. So it's going to have less impact on our brain and allow us to produce more melatonin and be more sleepy. And that works really well because if you think about in coincidence, I don't know, but the sun is very red in the evening, and that tends to trigger our circadian rhythm better than those brighter lights. Control the light and you'll be in a good spot. So the next one is your bed. And your bed should be a sacred place. Your bed should be for two things. One is sleep and the other is not on YouTube. That's a different website to talk about that stuff. But those are the only two things. It should be a sacred place. It should be something that you only sleep in. Like you want to get in bed, you don't want to be hanging out, doing emails, texts, whatever it may be. Even if it's something you like, on your phone, whatever, it's still technically like a task. It's something for you to do from the evolutionary perspective or foundational level of the brain. That's still a stressor. It's a task, something to do. So limit that stuff. Don't hang out. Don't watch Netflix. Don't play video games in bed. Even just sitting in a chair next to the bed playing video games is much better than actually being in your bed. It should be a sacred place where you only sleep and you want good vibes in that bed. And in that same train of thought, I guess I'll move to the next thing. The last thing is your mentality towards sleep. But you have to think of sleep as the ultimate form of peace. And you just spent the last 15 minutes watching a video about how important sleep is, but you cannot stress yourself into better sleep. It's not going to happen. And so you have to have a good relationship with sleep. You have to understand that it's important. You have to prioritize it. You want to set yourself up with a good environment. You want to set yourself up in a position to win and succeed and have a great night's sleep, but you don't want to overly stress about it. So if like you're waking up and you're checking a sleep tracker, your sleep score, and that's impacting how you feel and you're stressing about this, that is not a good relationship with sleep. The relationship with sleep you want to have is you wake up, you feel well rested, you schedule the amount of sleep into your schedule that you want to get, and you're consistently sleeping well, sleeping through the night, and you're not really thinking about it. It's kind of an afterthought as far as data goes. And a healthy relationship with data is something where you're actually reflecting. I love like the monthly recaps or looking at weeks at a time and seeing, did I implement any changes in my sleep habits? Were there changes in my life or my lifestyle, jobs, big changes, and looking at the macro level of how your sleep has been impacted. And then making some changes and validating those changes. Like that's a good relationship with sleep data and tracking. What's not good is when you're stressed and you start thinking about sleep. When you start having anxiety about not sleeping, exit the space, right? So if you're awake, start thinking you can't sleep. I can't sleep. I'm not going to be able to sleep. You start thinking about the impacts, everything we talked about the next day. Get out of that space because you're going to start associating that feeling with your bed. And our brain is very good at associating environments with feelings. Trust me. Sacred place mentality. And the last piece of the mentality thing is you're going to be fine, right? You have pulled all-nighters. I guarantee you. You've been fine. You got through it. If you're an athlete, you played, underslept, the body can do amazing things. Sometimes you just got to get it done. Everyone watching this video almost certainly will have a really bad night's sleep sometime in their life from this point forward. And just know you're going to get through it. You're going to be fine. Don't worry about it. Sometimes you freak out. The goal is to have consistently good sleep, and the average is a great night's sleep, but that doesn't mean it's going to happen every night. And our body is resilient, and you can get through stuff, get up, kick ass, keep moving on. And so keep that in mind. Like you're resilient. It's all right. The goal is to have great sleep. That's the norm. But the other piece of that is when you're taking care of yourself, you can be resilient. You can do amazing things even in a bad situation. Hopefully that helps. We'll be posting some more stuff. We'll be blowing this channel up with sleep tips, sleep hygiene, all the good things that help you feel better. Please like and subscribe, and we'll talk to you soon.